Grab a cup of tea or listen as you go, ladies. This is your hour with Dr. Zoe, your life and relationship coach. With encouragement, on-point insight, inspiring guests, health tips, and advice, Dr. Zoe helps busy women keep their mind in the game by redefining your superwoman. You're listening to The Dr. Zoe Show.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Zoe, and today's show is We're Not Broken, Just Bent. If you're in a relationship right now and you're struggling and you feel like it's totally broken, listen to this episode. My guest is Laurie McDermott, and she is a comedian. She is a life coach. She has been through a very difficult affair in her relationship, and she, at thewifeexpert.com, her goal is to just help women thrive in their marriages. So if you're tuning in for the first time, I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a life and relationship coach, and a motivational speaker. You can connect with me by texting the word join to 38470. So before we get started, I always share my Superwoman win and my Superwoman fail for the week. So my Superwoman win is that my 5-year-old daughter and I were just laying in bed, and she looked at me and she said, "Mommy, because of you, I faced my biggest fear." And I was like, "What?" And my heart just warmed hearing that. And what it was is we were on the playground or at a park, and there's this big like spider apparatus thing. And I've taught her, just like I talk to you guys, about how important it is to face your fears and not ever let fears overcome you, but you overcome fear. So I have these conversations with my 5-year-old daughter. And it feels so good to see when some of your seeds that you plant are taking root. And sometimes as a mom, and I'm sure if you're a mom, you feel the same way, that you feel like you speak and you speak and you speak to your kids and you lecture and whatever you do, but nobody really listens to you or takes you seriously. But those few words that she spoke to me, they stoked my fire to continue to plant more seeds. And I'm sure that I can go on that motivation for a few years. And my prayer, of course, is that she continues facing her biggest fears until she's on top of the world. So if you haven't had that kind of motivation in a while and your lamp is feeling dry, just use mine, because your kids, your husband, whoever you are trying to influence is listening to you. And you are planting seeds that you may never see come to fruition, but you have to trust that they will. So that's my mom win, or superwoman win for the day. So my superwoman fail isn't even about me. It was another mom, and I read about it on Yahoo, and I thought, oh my gosh, that poor mom. So there was a little boy, and he accidentally wore a salacious t-shirt to school, and his mom's apology went viral. So what it is it was this picture, like at first glance, it looks like McDonald's, the M, and it says, "I'm loving it." But if you look at it more closely, it actually becomes clear that the red and yellow t-shirt wasn't advertising McDonald's or innocent burgers and fries. In place of those golden arches that symbolize McDonald's, it was actually a pair of women's legs bent and spread with like heels on at the bottom. And this mom sent her son to school with that shirt on. Now, apparently the story behind it is that it was a hand-me-down that she got from a friend who had gotten it from another friend, and no one had looked at it, and her son threw the shirt on, and he had some other shirts that look like that. And if you look at it at first glance, it looks like a McDonald's, advertisement for a shirt, but it wasn't. And how embarrassing. So she certainly had to go and apologize and was embarrassed, and it felt like a super mom or superwoman fail. And she was explaining that morning, like how they were so busy and she had to get asthma treatments to her other kid, and she wasn't paying attention because her son dressed himself, and she kind of glanced at him and thought he was fine. So the moral of the story is we can't catch them every time, and we are not perfect, and that's okay. And we go on, and we can sometimes laugh at ourselves. So luckily, no one really got hurt, and probably the other kids, it all went way over their head. But anyway, it happens. And so I am here with my guest, Laurie McDermott, and we are talking about your relationships. And as I think about this, I think of this line from the Stepmom movie, which is a totally old movie, but it's still a very good one and relevant. And the line is, "We'll stay together even if we're hanging on by a thread." And if you are listening, the title of this show is We're Not Broken, just bent. And if you are in that place in your life, in your relationship, where you're feeling like maybe this isn't going to be able to work out, maybe we are really just broken and can't be fixed, this show is for you. Welcome, Laurie. I'm so glad to have you on the show today.
Hi, Zoe. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. And I'm so excited because I've been looking over your site and I've heard you over the years. And you come from a very interesting perspective because you are a comedian and you are a life coach. And are you an actress as well?
Only when there's a requirement to cry.
I love it.
That was a joke, but yes, sometimes it depends. I'm very picky,
Uh-huh.
but when I usually get a call when I need someone to cry on cue, even if it's a commercial.
Oh, how funny.
Just a very weird trait I have.
That's great. Hey, it works. So I love your perspective because obviously, if anyone knows about your work and your site, I love your site, thewifeexpert.com. And you really speak to women who are struggling in their marriage. And, your whole passion is to help women figure out how to stay in marriages. Am I right?
Yeah, I think people too often give up. I
Yeah.
think things start to get tough, and everyone's like, the only answer is to bail. I'm not getting what I want, so I'm going to change my underwear and find someone who will give me what I want.
Right.
That kind of thinking is a new age kind of thinking. The older age was in a marriage, your job is to give your spouse what they want. And if both parties are giving the other person what they want, everything works well. But it's a me world these days.
Right.
And everyone wants to have their own self be taken care of instead of, well, what am I doing? What am I giving?
That's so true. And when you talk about it being a me world, it's like, so it is a me world. It's all about you. We have our social media, which is all about you. And then how do we separate that and then come and be a totally different person in our marriage? And I think as you were talking about that, I think of that saying, which I think of often and I talk to my clients about: love is no good reason to get married. And the lack of love is no good reason to get divorced.
Yeah, that's true. I like that.
It is. And I think that because the expectation is we should be in love forever. We should always have those feelings, right? And when they start
Yeah,
to wane, go ahead.
yeah, they don't last. Love, you cannot, we change. I met several of my clients who they have, they're in their 70s and 80s,
Mhm.
and they said, I've been married to one person, but he's been four different people over the years,
Oh,
because
yes.
nothing stays the same. We all change. So as much as we're changing, we have to change in our relationships.
Right. Absolutely. And so the question for these women, for my listeners out there who might be struggling in their relationship and really feeling like, I don't think there's any way that I can make this work. And I don't know how in the world I'm going to live another 20, 30, 40 years in this place. What are some of the words that you have for a woman who's sitting in this place right now?
It's different for everybody.
Mhm.
Most of the clients that I've been working with are faithful,
Mm.
and it tends to be a little bit easier when you come from a place where you've gone through a marriage ceremony and you've said in front of God, I promise to do X, Y, and Z. And to look back on those things, love is patient, love is kind. Are we doing those things? Are you really coming to the table with being who you promised you were going to be? You were going to be there. You were going to give your partner space. You were going to love them. And when we fail to do that because we're not getting what we want, it creates chaos, and everyone stands back and says, well, I'm not getting what I want, so I'm not going to give you what you want. And then there's this standoff.
Right.
All it takes is one person to change the dynamic in a family or in a relationship. Somebody to look up and say, I'm going to stand up for my family, and I'm going to give. And I'm going to give the other person what they want. And sometimes I've asked my clients, what does your spouse want? And their response is, I don't know. I've never thought about it, because nobody takes the time to ask.
You're
So
so
if
right.
you're not giving your spouse or partner or boyfriend or girlfriend what they want, then of course they're going to be unhappy, and vice versa.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
it takes one person to start doing that giving, that where the other person will step up to the plate. And in the long run, if you're doing that like repeatedly and just being kind and you're giving that person like space or love or attention or, just whatever they need on their list and you give it to them, if like 5 years down the line go by and they're still not giving you back anything, maybe it's time to go. But you have to do the investing first.
Dr. Phil talks about how you have to work your way out of a marriage, that you have to work your way hard out of a marriage. And it's a lot of what you said. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, yes, one person, I really want you ladies to listen to this, one person can actually make a difference in the marriage. It is true that it takes two to continue a healthy marriage. That's absolutely true. But one person can turn it around. And I love how I was reading some of your blogs and you were talking about, and it's so true, how we can have conversations in our head with our partners and we have the entire conversation and we end up getting mad at them because we don't like the response that they had in our head. And we never even have the conversation in person with them. And we create roadblocks in our marriages.
Yeah. We also create drama too, where if somebody, you're with your spouse or partner and they act a certain way, all of a sudden you start assuming things. And because of those assumptions, you start acting a certain way or you start making decisions based on your assumptions when they might not even have happened or are true.
Right. Like he's mad. I think he's mad. So I'm going to be mad now.
Yeah. And he might have just gotten off the phone with a friend who said something about his job. And while he doesn't want to discuss it with you, he's lost in his own thoughts.
Right.
And it might have anything to do with you. And you're like assuming, oh, he's mad about this or that, or he found out about something I did yesterday. And then we start to create this drama and story in our own head, which has anything to do with it. I mean, I've gone a couple days being mad at somebody. And in reality, I had no reason to be mad at them because it was a story I made up in my own head.
Yes. And we talk to ourselves so much and it influences our entire life and our relationships. And so another thing that I want women to think about, and I've been talking with a couple of clients over this past week about this, is a lot of women will say, well, I want to feel loved. I want him to make me feel wanted. I want to feel the romance again. And my question to them is, so what does he do to give you that? How does he even know? Because you're saying, I want you to create a feeling in me. But telling your husband that, he has no idea how to create that feeling in you. Only you know. And so when you request things of your partner, and you should, we'll talk about that in a minute, you need to request them in a behavioral sense. When you do this thing, whether it's, you bring me coffee in the morning or fill up my gas tank or hug me or kiss me, when you do these behavioral things, it makes me feel this way. And this is what I need more of.
Yeah. Even so, like just saying an appreciation, like if someone shows up with coffee or your husband walks in the door with coffee, a lot of times we're so quick to be like, oh, thanks. And we move on. But the truth is you need to take that moment and just be like, oh my gosh, you brought me coffee. And, looking in the eyes and letting him know how appreciated that you are. And the crazy thing is that I think women forget is men value appreciation more than anything. They, you think about in the ant world, right? There's a queen bee who bosses all the ants around. And the ants work really hard because they know the queen bee loves them and appreciates them. They have this communication where they work really hard for her because they know what she gives back to them. So it's the same thing in our world because men don't do anything unless it's going to benefit their woman. And they know they are going to be appreciated. So the more you appreciate, the more they actually do. But it's that appreciation like, oh my gosh, I would love to go on this vacation. Did you see this vacation? I think we'd have a great time together. And like giving up the benefits to them about why it would be a great trip or whatever else you need. You need them to buy you jewelry. You need them to, take out the trash. Even like taking out the trash is a challenge sometimes in a lot of relationships. The husband will say he'll do it. But we don't appreciate them every time they do it. It's a weekly thing, right? You're not going, oh, thanks for taking out the trash. But we should, we could, we must. Like every time they take out the trash. And then I have a lot of clients that will say, yeah, but I do the dishes every day. He never says thank you. And, my response is to that, well, do you need it? And most women really don't. And again, that goes back to, well, I don't want to do it to him because I'm not getting it. But maybe you don't need it. Or maybe you don't care. So then again, it's more about giving it up and then hopefully you'll get it back if you do want that back. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. And if you do want it back, then you also need to request it back. And I really like that you talk about the differences between men and women, because in our society today, I know a lot of people want to not recognize that the differences are there and exist, but the reality is that they are, and they do and they're not absolute. Of course, some men have different tendencies and some women have different tendencies, but when you look at groups of people, do women and men tend to want the same things from relationships? Absolutely. But do we go about a very different way attaining them? For the most part, absolutely. And so you're so right that men do really thrive on that. I call it ego stroking
Oh,
or
yeah.
appreciation. And in some ways, it seems like it's almost demeaning to talk about men in that way, but it is actually the reality. And men, many times, will also tell you, just like men will tell you, I like the chase when it comes to dating. Men will also tell you, I need those affirmations. I need to know that she appreciates me, that she needs me, that I'm doing a good job, that she notices. And, a lot of times it goes by the wayside.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, in general, I always like to say that women, we are definitely the smarter species.
Mhm.
And we be smart enough to know what our husbands need. Because in most relationship, it's the women that drive it. It's the women that control where it's going, socially, economically, most of the times. It's us who are
Mhm.
the smart species. And I hate to say it like that, especially when you think about like men need us to dumb down sometimes. And I fight with my clients about this, but I will say it over and over again. We are smarter, but in order to make them feel like our hero, because
Yes.
men want to know, they want their wife to think of them as their hero, that they're going to put on a Superman costume when you need something. Like, for example, I had a client who would always tell her husband, oh, the light bulb needs changing. Oh, this needs to be done. Can you take out the trash? Can you do this? I need you to do this. And she learned over the years to say, instead of, honey, turn down the heat or turn up the heat, she would go, I'm cold.
And then
And
the
he would stand up and he'd be like, what do I do? I need to turn up the heat.
right, because men are natural born
Problem solvers.
problem solvers, but also they want to protect, and that's part of
Yes.
protecting. But I hesitate to say that women are smarter because men are crazy brilliant in their own way, but women have better emotional and social intelligence than men do. We just do. And our talent for nurturing is way beyond theirs. And those are the things that show up in relationships. And those are the reasons why you say women drive the relationship, because those qualities are so necessary in maintaining and keeping a relationship.
Yes, I should have said, yeah, that's a very good way of saying it. I said it wrong.
Yeah, I
We are,
won't I won't say you said it wrong, because especially as you work with clients, that word dumbing down, and I think for women, when we over appreciate our ego stroke, for us it feels kind of like dumbing down. But what you have to remember is that what I said, the social and emotional and nurturing intelligence of men is not as high as ours. So it feels that way, but to them they're not experiencing in that way. But it's not about being smart in general. It's just really about their talents and their makeup versus our makeup.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're different people. And the
Right.
way to get what you want is knowing what you're dealing with.
So you talked about core values and how when you're in a relationship and you are struggling, you said keeping your core values keeps you sane. Can you talk about that?
A lot of times this falls under when someone has had an affair. And I
Mhm.
don't know if many of your listeners have that in their relationships, but having the core value of, are you religious? Are you faithful? Are you truthful? Are you an honest, caring person? All of your core values is like, do you believe in your commitment to your partner? You
Mhm.
said you would never have an affair or cheat on them. And then, things get kind of rough in your relationship, and, you're at work and there's this cutie pie who's giving you some attention. And you're like, oh, well, no one will never know. I can just jump off this cliff and just go have an affair real quick. No one will know. But
Mhm.
the only person that will know is you.
Right.
And once that gets in your head, you will forever be, I don't want to say damaged, but it will be inside of you. And you have lost, if your core value is honesty and truth and, staying committed, you lose a part of yourself. So by staying true to who you are, instead of looking outside for a way to solve your problem or to fill some need you have, you got to look back inside and stick to your core values.
So you're saying that your core values will actually help you stay in a relationship when it feels like maybe it's broken for right now, this season.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
There's several things that I feel that people should leave a relationship. One is abuse.
Mm-hmm.
One is drugs or alcohol. And so abuse of drugs or alcohol, and then abuse if someone's hurting you,
Right.
or physically and mentally, those kind of things. You can't change the person you are with. Whoever you are with, you have to come to love them. And I think in a lot of marriages, if you stay through them, there's always rough patches people go through, always. It's almost like you're being tested. And once you pass the test and you get through the hurdle of trying to deal with your differences, and I don't like this about you and I don't like that about you, okay, but you learn to deal with whatever those are, you will cross over into this valley of Amazeville where you reach the golden years. And unfortunately you're old by then, but you're in your 50s. But I meet so many people. I'm constantly traveling and I love meeting people at the airport, because most older couples that are at the airport have been married 40, 50 years. And they say the secret to, having a long relationship is traveling, getting out of your crap. I mean, when you sit at home with your spouse or partner, everywhere you look, there's bills to pay, there's things to clean, there's stuff to fight about. You feel like you're doing more, he feels like he's doing more, and there's like a little bit of a tension. And when you leave your crap and you get out of your crap and you go on a trip somewhere to, I don't know, let's say San Francisco, and you're in San Francisco and you're in a hotel and you're looking around, everything's new. And there's like this new excitement that you can have just by being with each other, but someplace else. And then you end up looking at each other and you're like, oh, I remember you. Oh my gosh, I used to like you.
Yes.
And then you can rekindle things just by getting out of the crap, because that's what's most important is your relationship.
That's so true. And that's one of the things that I often will prescribe to couples who are struggling is get out of your normal environment. And even just being out of your normal environment, you see your spouse differently. Like if you're, at a restaurant and you go to the bathroom and you come back and you look at him from across the room, if you can look at him from those same eyes that you used to, or you can see like, oh my gosh, if I just met him, I would be so attracted to him. But we have this huge cover of all the daily, grind and all this stuff that we don't even see each other anymore. And for women who are struggling in this place, I know that it's so hard because our relationships are such a part of who we are, as they should be, but they should not be all of who we are. And the other reality is that we have to recognize when we're struggling in a relationship that no one and no marriage can make us, nor should we put the burden of that on our marriage or relationship to make us happy.
No, I don't. I agree with that completely. Everyone looks to I'm marrying her because she's going to make me happy.
Right.
No, if someone, like I have people that have partners that have said, well, we're going to get divorced because I'm not happy. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Why is that her fault? You're not happy because you're not happy with who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing, your happiness has nothing to do with her. Sure, she can bring you joy, but your job is to be happy with your own self.
Right.
And a lot of people forget to do that. They make the responsibility someone else's.
And so before you even think about that divorce place or divorcing, you need to figure out how to make yourself happy aside from your spouse. And Will Smith talked about this. I saw it, I don't know, YouTube, Instagram, somewhere. And he was talking about some struggles that he and Jada went through. And he told her, you need to go away because I can't make you happy. There's nothing in the world I can do to make you happy. So you need to go away and figure out how to be happy by yourself and see if that's even possible. And then come back to me. And it was so true. It is so true. And so I really want to talk about some of the ways that, especially when you're in a very difficult relationship. And I'm glad that you talked about, there are definitely some instances where you may need to just go. And yes, abuse and alcohol and drug abuse as well are definitely ones. And so, I know that you come from a place of having a husband who's had an affair and you guys worked through that and he left and came back. But also in some instances, an affair or maybe multiple affairs would be a really good reason to leave a relationship.
Yeah, habitual. Yeah, that's
Habitual.
it's a character thing where somebody feels that they are constantly in need of that attention and appreciation. And it can't be fulfilled by one person.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably should never have gotten married. There's many men that I know like that. It's unfortunate.
It is. That's true. And I mean, that's really a whole nother show, but those are definitely instances where you need to go ahead and figure out how to cut it. But aside from those, your job is to figure out how to make yourself happy aside from your spouse. And part of that is figuring out the self-care that you need and figuring out what it is that you're trying to get from the relationship that you're not getting from the relationship, and how you can take that burden off of your spouse and put it back on yourself, because it's 100% your responsibility. And whether it's self-care, whether it's pursuing something that maybe you gave up, a passion, whatever it is, you've got to figure that out, because you need to figure out how to be happy first and then bring your happy self to the relationship.
Especially if you're back out in the world dating again. No man wants to be with a woman who has a grumpy, complaining, sad side.
True.
And we all have that, but they want to know that you're happy all by yourself.
Right.
That you're over the divorce, that you're over your last boyfriend. I have clients that when they get together with new boyfriends, they have shared with me that they complain about their ex. And that's a no-no subject.
Absolutely.
Because you have to come from a place of compassion, understanding, love, so that this new person will be like, wow, you had a divorce. It sounds terrible, but it seems like you have understanding and compassion towards him, because whoever you're with, the guy, is thinking, will she feel that way about me? They want to know you have that side of you.
That's very true.
I think people forget that.
Of course they do. Yeah, of course they forget that. So also, I know the main thing that I see with my clients is that all of this, when it comes to feeling broken in a relationship, not being happy in your marriage, it all tends to lead back to communication. And I am shocked often when I get new couples in my practice and they will talk to me and they will tell me everything and so many things that they would never just look at each other and tell each other. That's who they should be telling. I mean, obviously therapy is there for a reason and it's good and it's helpful. But if they had been able to turn around and sit on the couch and look at each other and tell each other the same things that they're telling me, they wouldn't even need to be in my office.
Most of the time when that communication breaks down and they start complaining about the trash.
Right.
Oh, you're not doing this, or you're not doing that, or you're not doing this. All these physical exterior things, which in reality, it has nothing to do about the trash.
It's never about the trash.
How you're not, I don't feel cared for. I don't feel loved. I don't feel worthy that you are giving me some attention. And that is what you have to uncover and let them understand that that's really where it is. And, I had a client recently who kept telling me he was done with his marriage. He's done with his marriage. And then they went on vacation. He's like, oh my God, we had a great time. And I said, what was different? He's like, well, we talked and we did things. We were at the pool together. We didn't have kids around. And so I always encourage people, they have to take a date night once a week. You have to take a date night, and you cannot go on a date night and talk about kids or bills. You have to talk about, what are your dreams? What are your hopes? You do what you want in your life. What is our future vacation? What are we doing? What are we looking forward to? So that there can be some hope. Hope is everything in a relationship. Hope that it's going to continue. Hope that we're going to get through this mess. Hope that it's going to last. Once hope is gone, everything kind of starts to crumble.
That's so true. And if you're listening and you're thinking about that date night, which Laurie just explained is so important, listen to episode number 27. Has maintaining your relationship become a box to check off or something like that? And Kristen Maneri gives so many, number one, a lot of the episode is about date night with your spouse. And especially when you have nothing to talk about and you're in that place of being broken. She gives great advice and information about how to do a date night when you two are so separate. So yes, that's such an important tip, Laurie. It's so important to connect with your spouse. And you talked about how the differences in marriage actually keep people together.
Yeah, because it's the opposite. As much as you don't like it, that is what you're looking for.
So it gives you, right, it gives you things to talk about, his deficits, your strengths. You guys can can support each other and balance each other. But often it's those differences, which maybe we're attracted to in the beginning of a relationship, that we grow to hate over time.
Yeah. Isn't that fun? Isn't that true?
It's true. It's true. And
And
so,
it's finding that joy of remembering what you did fall in love with your spouse for
mhm,
and trying to switch that. It's everything is perspective. It's how you see everything, and you can change your perspective. And one of my highest recommendations that I run with clients is when they're angry about a whole bunch of things, I ask them to get kind of like a composition book, an empty spiral,
mhm.
and write on it grateful book. And every single day before they go to bed, or as soon as they wake up in the morning, or both, write down 5 things that they love and appreciate about their husband or wife.
Yes.
And over time, all of a sudden, you will begin to fall back in love with your spouse. And it's hard, especially if you're in a really bad place right now and you hate him breathing.
Mm.
And even if he stands near you, you're like, oh my God, his nose is funky. You start to pick on everything. And if you just start being grateful for the things that he does and what he is about, over time, not immediately, but you have to do it every day. Put it by your nightstand, do it when you wake up, do it at work, make a set routine on doing it. It will change your relationship.
You are so right. It's really marriage affirmations, because I talk about how much we talk to ourselves every day, and we do. And when you're in a bad place in your marriage, you're not talking to yourself about anything positive about your relationship. All the self-talk about your relationship is all bad. It's he doesn't do this, and there he goes again, and you're only focusing on the negative. And so if you force yourself to do what Laurie just said, write down positive things, because they are there. You're just not wanting to see them because you're hurting and you're angry and you're scared. But that's such a great exercise to do, Laurie. And
Yeah, 5 a day.
5 a day.
If you want to do morning and night, you could do 10. And even if this is what you do. You put a date at the top. Let's say, what is today? The 10th?
10th.
And then you write the year, and then you write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I am grateful for Bob because of blank. So I'm grateful for Bob because of blah. And if you do that at night and in the morning, I'm telling you, in I don't want to say a year, but I probably filled 4 books in 2 years during my husband's affair. And I just kept doing it. And what happened, just as a little side note, he was off with some Gaga girl, and I started to do this. He was probably 2 months into the affair. I'd asked him to move out, and I started writing in this. I hated him. I hated everything about him. And I just started to do this. And over time, he would show up at the house and be like, "Hey, how are you? Come on in. I'm headed out. I was in a happy place because he wasn't perfect. But the things that he brought to the table, he was still a good person. He just chose a different path for a while. And over time, because I stayed so positive, and he saw how grateful I was to him, because when you write it down, it becomes part of who you are. He realized, what am I doing with this other person?
Wow.
And
No, that's so powerful.
It just kind of ended up bringing him home. So, and there's a lot of other levels, but if I hadn't done that, I don't think he would be here right now.
No, that makes sense, because you would have been giving him the evil eye, and you would have been mean and sarcastic every time he showed up. And the last thing he would want to, get back with, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of people who've been hurt by somebody, they want to punish them back.
Yeah.
And that is the last thing that we ever should do, is punish.
Well, and that is so hard. And, hats off to you for doing it, because I think that that's so much a natural reaction. And then, that's the societal reaction, right? We want to burn people at the stake when they cheat, even though, it's kind of like this whole hypocritical thing. But we want to get them back. We want to hurt them, or at least keep them from hurting us anymore, by closing ourselves off and expressing our anger. And we certainly have this sense of, moral justice and right and wrong about it. And so it's so hard to not be in that space. So thank you so much for sharing that story, Laurie, because I'm sure that there are women out there listening who may be in that place where their husband is left, or their husband has had an affair, and they feel like their relationship is so broken because he's gone. What advice do you have? You talked about the 2 choices a woman has when their husband leaves. Can you talk about that? I think you called them to freak and get mad or to freak and get clarity.
One of the worst things that can ever happen to a person is when a spouse just up and leaves. That
Yeah.
they call it almost like a child dying, which a child dying is the worst thing that you can ever possibly imagine. But the pain is very similar
Mm-hmm.
because your future is just a cutoff. There will be no more. But the only difference is with a husband who's run off or changed his mind or gone off somewhere else, there's always a way back. And as I said, you could freak and you could strategize about what you're going to do to make it better and bring them back. Or you could freak and be like, I am done. And the I am done one, it hurts and there's a hole in your heart for the rest of your life. If you have decided that you don't want to be married anymore and this person is off and ran away, then it just kind of is easier. But if you're hurting so much after the person is gone, there might be a part of you that still wants them back. And in putting your ego aside and really asking yourself, what could I have done differently in my marriage to make things work out better? And really taking a swallow of your pride, that comes from a good place, and that will help you in your next relationship if the current one doesn't end up working out. But I think when someone leaves, they leave because they don't know what else to do. And that is the only solution they've come up with. It might not be the right one, and chances are it's always the wrong one, because you never want to just walk out on someone. You always want to have a dialogue and talk, because there's always other ways of handling situations like that. But either way, one leads to a lot of pain and one leads to a lot of healing. And the number one thing that you want to worry about is, what did I do wrong in this relationship to make this happen? And what can I do now to make it work? Because if you start to attempt that, even if this relationship doesn't work out, the next one you go to, you'll be so far advanced on how to handle the next one, so that something like that will never happen to you again.
I love that. And I love the getting clarity, because you can spend a lot of time in the mad and you're going to spend a lot of time in the grief, and you can grieve and have clarity at the same time. But it's so important to try to get as much clarity as you can. If you can get it from your spouse, that's great. If you can't, maybe some friends who know a lot about your marriage can be helpful, or maybe you just have to really dig down in yourself and be able to look, with an open mind as much as you can at your part in the relationship and what you contributed to this. Now, the other thing is, sometimes, and I have a client in that space right now, her husband left her. He up and left when she was on vacation and cleaned out everything and took off. This man, the signs he is sending are very clear. He is not interested in a relationship. He is not coming back. And I feel it would be detrimental for her to stay in that place of, I'm going to get you back.
Yeah, I read about some older women who have stayed in that place where, you know what? I was married to you. My door is always open. I'm moving on,
Mm-hmm.
but my door is open. That part of you, actually, it has nothing to do about your spouse. Let's say your spouse leaves and you're left feeling, hey, he's never coming back. He's told me he's never coming back. It's never going to happen. So I have to move on. You can still move on, but still be kind and open to the opportunity for that person coming back into your life. You shouldn't let that stop you from finding somebody else. But having that open door will, when that spouse who left comes around, he's going to see you as understanding, forgiving, caring, and loving. So all these judgments that they made and the reasons they left to go with somebody else or wherever they are, they're always going to look at you and be like, oh my gosh, this person was amazing. I left, I was supposed to damage them. I crushed them. And they are still nice to me. And they are kind and loving and they still care about me. Holy cow, what did I do? So even if they never come back for whatever reason, if you treat them that way, you are giving yourself freedom. They say about you want to do revenge on someone else. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Right.
If you decide, I'm not drinking poison, I'm going to drink champagne and wish them well. If you find a way to get there, and I'm not saying that's easy, but if you find a way to get there, everyone around you is going to see how you treat the person who screwed you over with kindness, love, and joy and compassion. And they're going to be not saying you're going to do this because of it. They're just going to be in awe of you, because that's how we all should be behaving.
Well,
So
because
much.
it's also self-care, because in doing all of that, I mean, on one hand, I'm thinking, who cares what he thinks? On doing all of that, you're taking care of and loving yourself, because if he sees you that way, it's because you are that way and you have become
Yeah,
that way and you have managed to let go of all that bitterness and all that anger. And that's the best thing you could do for yourself.
it's hard.
Yes.
But what a gift that you could give yourself to have that kind of forgiveness and understanding to be able to move on. And if you really do want that person who has left you for someone else who just left,
Mm-hmm.
you have an opportunity. And as you're being this to this person who destroyed you or supposed to try to destroy you, a new person might come along and be like, "What an amazing person you are," and you might find a new love that way.
Right. No, that's beautiful. And that's so true. And so if you're in that place of he's gone or he's leaving, or because of certain signs that the marriage is 100% broken, then you do have that choice to freak and get mad or freak and get clarity. And you can have the clarity and grieve at the same time. Thank you so much, Laurie. That's such a great point. And so before we finish up for the day, you talked about marriage being a garden. I love it. Weed it or it dies. We know that for sure. Because any system, if left to its own devices, is not going to necessarily grow and become better. It's going to degenerate. And so, do you have tips other than date night? And do you have any last tips or suggestions for women who are in that broken place?
Yeah, for those who pray, I
Mhm.
suggest saying a quick prayer before you go to bed with your husband or spouse. Just holding their hands and saying an Our Father or whatever prayer you use, and then asking God to give your spouse something that they might need, being a new job or, clarity in a certain area or help losing weight or whatever they're looking for, sharing that with God and your husband. Because if you are in a faith marriage, you have that. It's not two of you, it's three of you. It's you and your husband
Mhm.
and God.
Right.
The other thing that I always like to say is make sure you say, "I love you," before you hang up the phone, before you walk out the door, anytime you're departing from your spouse. And it's not just a quick "I love you," it's looking in their eyes and saying, "I love you." Just that moment of connection. Hugs should be at least 6 seconds long. And you might say, like, "Oh, I hug. It's not a big deal. 6 seconds. They don't need that." Yeah, nobody needs it, but everybody wants it, and then they'll need it. Does that make sense?
It
So
does.
the 6 second hug it's a gift. We're so busy, we're so crazy. Everyone is moving in 20 different directions. But if you spend just a few seconds giving a hug just a little bit longer, it's that connection that you have without even saying a word.
No, that's beautiful. And you're right. And, we do really need it though. Humans are born for connection, not just emotional and social connection, but physical connection. And so, do we need it in that moment? No, but we do need it, just like we need food. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
beautiful.
those are my sense. And then the vacation. I think everyone should be vacationing somewhere, even if it's just a night down the street in a hotel. You got to get out of your stuff.
Mm.
Date night, the vacation, the hugs, the "I loves yous."
Just as a couple by yourself, not with the kids, right?
No,
Right.
no. And you know what? Our kids watch us for a living, and
Yeah.
they need to see mom and dad. The only way they're going to see what it is to have a relationship is for you to show them what it looks like. Dad to treat mom with respect, mom to treat dad back with respect. And it's okay. Everyone's like, "Oh, you can't argue in front of your kids." Of course you can. They need to see you argue. They need to know that you're different, but they need to see you resolve that difference. They need to see you say, "I'm sorry. You know what? Your dad did this today and I screwed up and I did this and this. And you know what, hon, I'm so sorry." And if your kids see that, they'll go, "Oh, okay. So they had a fight and then this is how this is done." And then they resolved it with an "I'm sorry. Here's a hug. Here's a kiss." They need to see that.
That's so
That's
true.
education.
It is. And it's the foundation of the rest of their life and how they do relationships in the future. So you're absolutely right about that. Well, thank you so much, Laurie. This has been a great conversation. And for any of you women out there who feel like your relationship is broken, check out Laurie's website, thewifeexpert.com. And there's so many good resources to really encourage you to know that it doesn't have to be broken. It could be just bent. And Laurie, how else can women get a hold of you? Would that be the best place at thewifeexpert.com?
So it's actually thewifeexpert@gmail.com.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much for being on my show today. This was all great stuff, and hopefully we'll have you back in the future.
Love it. Thanks, Dr. Zoe. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
People ask me, how do you have so much energy? I am not a coffee drinker, but I love the benefits of matcha green tea. More antioxidants than coffee and a smooth energy, not the jittery kind that lasts me all day long. Perfect for you supermoms too. I have searched the world over for that perfect matcha for my smoothies, and I have found it at Kiss Me Organics. You can get it too at kissmeorganics.com. Enter the promo code Dr. Zoe, DRZOE, for 10% off and free shipping. Experience the smooth, healthy, organic energy of matcha green tea. KissMeOrganics.com.
So now it's time for my health tip of the day. And my health tip is wait an hour in the morning before you cut on your cell phone. I was listening to a motivational speaker. I don't even remember who it was, but he was talking about the importance of this. And we all know about how we should shut off our electronics before we go to bed, that we should need to give our brain a rest and allow our brain to kind of calm down, because we know that the electronics really activate, right, centers in our brain and keep us really active in that way. And they can interrupt sleep. But in the morning, when you wake up, how many of us roll over and pick up our cell phone and cut it on? And we're looking for that fix. We're looking for that dopamine fix that the cell phone gives us. Or maybe we just need to check and make sure we haven't missed anything, or we need to check and stress ourselves out about all of our to-dos for the day. And my encouragement to you for your health, for your mental and emotional health, don't cut that cell phone on for an hour. You spend your first hour of the morning meditating, praying, doing all of your regular morning stuff that you have to do with your family or for your life, but do it without your cell phone. And you'll find that that is such a better, healthier start to your day, because your mind is clear and you're able to maybe, think about your day, set an intention for your day. Leave the cell phone off. Believe me, it's going to be there. You cut it on, all those notifications are going to be there. So that's my health tip for today. And this is Dr. Zoe, if you're just tuning in. And this has been a wonderful show with Laurie McDermott. And if you know of a friend who may benefit from any of my topics, please spread the love and share my show. If you like the show, leave a review. And you can also connect with me at Dr. Zoe Shaw or any of my social medias at the handle Dr. Zoe Shaw. Join my free newsletter by texting the word join to 38470. And I look forward to speaking with you wonderful ladies on social media. Take care. Bye.
You've been listening to The Dr. Zoe Show, redefining your superwoman, with your host, Dr. Zoe Shaw. Don't forget to sign up for her monthly newsletters to get encouragement, tips, and skills for keeping your mind in the superwoman game. Connect with her now at www.drzoeshaw.com. Tell your friends and subscribe to her podcast on iTunes. Join us next time for another edition of The Dr. Zoe Show.